Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We're Profusion. We're going to be talking a little bit today about some of the science behind a marketer, how it was developed, etc. I am delighted to be joined by two special guests today. We have here with me my colleagues, Henrik Nordmark and Juan Pablo Ecuaja, and they are going to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about, through the session, about how we have built AI Marketer and what we've done. Just a note, we're going to try and make this as interactive as possible. We'd love to be able to answer your questions either as we go or at the end. So throw them into the chat box, and we're going to try and keep that going. We're also going to have quite a few polls scattered through the afternoon. So little quizzes are going to show up in the chat box. So when I tell you, or when one of us tells you, hey, there's a little set of questions, please do make sure you've got the polls open. You'll see them right there in the chat box on the side of the screen, because what that let you do is to kind of engage with us a little bit. We'll get to see what it is that you think about this topic, and we'll react accordingly. I'm going to try and keep it as interactive as possible. Use the question box as much as you need to, and we'd love to be able to answer some of those for you as we go. So, look, thank you very much, and I would like to ask Henrik to do a quick intro.
Hi, guys. So I'm Henrik Nordmark. I'm the Director of Science, Data, and Innovation at Profusion. I'm also visiting fellow at the University of Essex, where I do some guest lecturing in statistics and machine learning. The AI Marketer is a project I've been very excited about for a long time. And together with Juan, we've been putting a lot of interesting cutting-edge science into this. So we're excited to be here with you. Juan?
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Juan, and I'm a research data scientist here at Profusion. I'm a PhD candidate in data science in the University of Essex, and I'm delighted that you are joining us today. Thank you.
So, thank you for joining us. Who are Profusion? We are a data consultancy. We're a business that we're really committed to trying to help businesses to actually find the value from data. Data is too often a huge asset on a company's balance sheet that just isn't appropriately tapped, right? It just hasn't been extracted and turned into data in the way other more traditional assets are. And we work through trying to help turn business questions into data questions to then build and support data products that actually help to solve those. And then most importantly, to embed them into your business. Now, that really means making sure that the data products end up as part of your workflow and not a change in your workflow, but something that makes your jobs easier, not harder. And that's why we've really committed to AI Marketer. And what I'm going to ask Henrik to do now is talk a little bit about Profusion's people, some of the skill sets that we have in order to try to really bring that to reality.
Thanks, Alistair. Yes, so at Profusion, we actually really need a very large team with different kinds of specialists. We need obviously data scientists, but also data engineers and data architects and machine learning engineers and software developers. And it's really this combination of people who allow us to do the consulting work that we do, but also has helped us build the project as we build the AI Marketer product as we know it today. Obviously, Juan and I have been really leading on this, but it is really a team effort. We also have a lot of collaborators at the University of Essex, professors in computer science and machine learning and mathematics, all feeding into this, so that we really bring the most state-of-the-art kind of expertise into this. And
so, what is it that made this so important to us, and why AI Marketer in particular out of all the things that we could have been building? One of the easiest ways for a business to turn a big pool of data into actual revenue and growth is to be able to use it to understand customers better, to do more effective communications, whether that helps you to retain customers, to increase the order frequency, to increase the average basket value size. There's all kinds of tactics and steps that you can use if you know exactly what each customer is looking for at each moment in time. So you can better predict these customers are ready to be nudged and are really likely to be able to join our loyalty scheme, or these customers are going to do a lot of small basket value purchases, so expect that behavior, and which products do we show them, etc. So when we developed AIM, we did it in a way to be able to build more targeted, more effective steps. And what that means is to be able to connect it into your email workflow and actually make that work. So you'll see a quick poll on the side of your screens coming in right now. And I just want you to take 2 seconds to just have a bit of a think about which of these 4 areas is more important for your business at the moment. Think about the business that you're in, or if you're working with clients, what you find as being really, really common with your clients, because you get a very different kind of way. You can see how each of these actually genuinely does improve the value that you're getting from some of this customer data. So, one of the things that we're always very curious about is which of these is most important to you, because you can see customer retention, you can see revenue increase. Revenue increase can come from increased order value, increased order frequency. Brand loyalty can come from having the right comms at the right time. Sometimes that means fewer communications, right? Fewer emails. How many is too many, and how do you send the right amount? So what I'm going to do is ask Henrik and Juan to just talk a little bit about AI Marketer, how it works and what it does, so that we can really start to get into the meat of things. So over to you, Henrik.
Thank you. Let me go on to the next slide. Right. So one of the important things that we thought to build into this product is kind of really find the stuff that were the common pain points that we saw through a lot of our clients, and some of the technical consulting work that we've done to help increase customer retention and brand loyalty and increase revenue allowed us to then start building these as sort of more generic functions that could be solved over and over again in a more reliable way. And so we had done quite a bit of work with Coty and M&S Bank and TradePoint. And then, as I said, in collaboration with some of our university partners and partnership with Innovate UK, which is a branch of the UK government that fosters links between academia and industry, we were able to start building this project. And in fact, we ended up deciding to build these 6 modules here. One is customer lifetime value. So really getting to understand who are your most valuable customers, which are the customers that you should be nurturing the most. Now, I know that you might have heard about customer lifetime value in other contexts, and what is perhaps more traditionally done is to just look at historically how much has a customer spent up until this point in time. So just look at all of their transaction history, and you call that their lifetime value up until that moment. What we wanted to do here is to actually create like a predictive customer lifetime value. So based on past behavior, and I know maybe some demographics and whatever information you have, are we able to say it's like, okay, over the next 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, how much do we expect different customers to be spending? And this really allows you to find sort of diamonds in the rough, people who maybe haven't spent that much with you yet, but are exhibiting some of the characteristics of people who will end up spending a lot with you in the future. And so that's obviously a great thing to nurture. Along somewhat similar lines, we also developed an RFM model, a recency, frequency, and monetary value model. So here the idea is, again, rather just kind of blindly and arbitrarily kind of separating out people into different chunks, we wanted to put some machine learning intelligence behind this and allow the data to tell us, okay, this is a low frequency of purchase, this is a high level of spend. Can we get 4 different quadrants that really kind of tell us who are the people who spend often, but maybe not in such great amounts, who are the people who spend huge quantities, but perhaps relatively rarely, and everything in between. And again, there are many ways of doing this, but using kind of the latest state-of-the-art technology here really helps to get more naturally defined groups. Customer churn is one that we'll talk a fair bit about. This has been one of our most successful modules. We'll have a case study towards the end. Here, the idea is like, okay, if you have a customer and all of a sudden they stop coming to see you, they've stopped purchasing, have they really left you for good? Or are they maybe just on holiday for a few weeks or something? And that's not always clear, especially in a non-contractual churn type of scenario. Obviously, if you're Netflix or you're a mobile phone company, it might be a little bit more obvious when a contract ends. But in many cases, you don't really know. The customer just stops buying at some point. And so what we wanted to do here is understand the customer life cycle stages and predict who is at risk of churning, who has already churned, and what kind of mitigation strategies can we put in place to prevent that before it's too late and becomes a lot harder to win those customers back. Then we have a send time optimization module. So this is trying to understand when is the best time to communicate with your customers so that they are actually the most receptive to the message you want to give them. Some people might be natural morning persons. Some people might be night owls. Some people might read their emails more diligently on the weekend or at lunchtime. And so really figuring that out, but at an individualized level is extremely useful. And again, we use some clever machine learning, deep learning techniques to really optimize for this. Then we have a recommender system. So this is a recommendation engine that tries to figure out the best combinations of products and customers and match them up so that you're really serving the most relevant content and that it doesn't feel like spam, that it's genuinely stuff that will be of interest to your customers. And we've had some really great success stories with this, which Juan will go over a little bit later in the presentation. And finally, obviously, you might want to know when somebody is going to make their next purchase. So we have a propensity to buy module. This gives you like a time horizon that you can tweak. You can say it's like, I want to know in the next 30 days, which of my customers are most likely to buy, what's the probability that they will buy. And thus you can, again, tailor your communication strategies based on that.
I always find send time optimization absolutely fascinating because if you email me after I have finished work, that's when I'm almost certainly going through all my personal emails and stuff that's built up through the day. If you wait too long, then I'm walking the dog and cooking dinner and that's it. Like it just goes in the pile of to be looked at later and means it probably never will. So what we've been able to do is to really try and bring as much cutting edge thinking, as many state-of-the-art methods into how we solve these problems as we possibly can. So what we've done here is given you a bit of an overview of the actual kind of modules that make it up. But what Henrik and Juan are going to do now is go into some of the detail about them, some of the science behind it, and some actual use cases that we've seen, that we've worked with, and have worked through there. So over to you, Henrik.
Thank you. So let me tell you about Churn. So I'm really excited about this one. This was one of the first projects that we worked on the AI Marketer. The idea here, the main insight is that you don't want to use one size fits all, right? And obviously that seems like in some ways a rather obvious insight that one shouldn't treat all your customers in the exact same way because they all behave rather differently. But it's not an entirely trivial thing to figure out, because if you have one customer who comes into your shop very regularly, but it's once a month, and you have another customer who comes into your shop and only comes in, let's say, every 7 days, so weekly, then the fact that you haven't seen that first customer for 3 weeks is actually quite normal. There's nothing to worry about. They will likely come next week at the kind of 4-week interval period. But if you haven't seen that first guy, and he usually comes in every 7 days, and I mean the second guy, and he comes every 7 days, and it's been 3 weeks, maybe you should start to worry. And so basically what we're trying to do here is find what we call the natural rate of return of each customer. And based on each person's natural rate of return, we then figure out, okay, is this normal? If they've just bought something very recently, we give them the neutral status. And there's, you don't want to spam them, you don't want to do anything, just kind of leave them alone because they've literally just bought from you yesterday. If we move into the more active period where some of these peaks are, the yellow peak, the green peak, the blue peak, that means that, okay, now is the normal time when we would expect these people to buy next. So expect a sale any moment now. And you may not even need to encourage them to do that. They might just kind of do that out of their own volition. However, even more time passes by. So you kind of pass that peak in the graph, then you might start to get a little bit worried. You might say like, okay, normally they should have come like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and they still haven't showed up. Who knows what's going on? So at this point, we label them as being at risk. And this might be a really great opportunity to say, hey, send them an email reminding them that you exist, or if you even wanted to be more proactive, send like a 5% discount voucher or something like that. And finally, if even more time has elapsed and we think that the probability of them coming back at all is getting sort of close to zero, unless you do something very proactive, then obviously we label them as being churned. And this has been an extremely useful tool. And the mathematics behind it, which I won't go into too much detail, but we're using some Bayesian neural networks, a lot of the stuff that Juan has been doing in his PhD, using stuff like representation learning and stuff. And it's wonderfully accurate. All right, I'll hand it over next to Juan to explain one of our other modules. Oops.
Yeah, so I want to talk to you about what the recommendation engine is and why is it so important for us. And it's probably one of the models that has shown the best performance of all these 6 modules recently. So we created this module with only just one objective, and it is to personalize the customer experience. So because it's not the same saying Juan is very likely to purchase over the next month, or Juan is very likely to purchase Y or X item over the next 30 days or 15 days. So traditionally, recommender systems are static. So we used to build the recommender system from 2 things, or from a co-occurrence matrix, when we have all the users and all the items and how they have interacted. And we have brilliant techniques like collaborative filtering or matrix factorization that they were really good in not dynamic context. And what I mean is, for example, customers don't really get to see a movie multiple times, or don't really get to read a book multiple times. And this behavior is not happening in retail mainly, because customers purchase the same items over and over and over again. So we needed to reinvent how recommender system works and introduce the time dimension into recommender systems. For this, we basically analyzed all customer transaction as a sequential step, as a time series, and we are trying to predict how likely is for a customer to interact in the future, like in the next 30 days or in the next 20 days or so, with each particular item. and this has shown very good performance. I think Alistair, you got some stats to show about the performance of the model.
So what you're going to see here is a quick case study and a poll. Oh, here we go. Accidentally showed you the results there. A quick case study and a poll where we've used this module specifically with a client of ours to try to increase the sales from an email newsletter campaign. So the poll is coming out here, and the question for you is: this is essentially just your gut guess on how far you think, purely by, with no other changes, purely by being able to use this kind of product recommendation tool that Juan has been describing with the client, how far do you think we were able to increase sales versus the previous mechanism, which in their case, and this is interesting, was to simply manually select similar products to the one that they're showcasing to find customers who have bought those similar products before.
And I think in this poll you have a little bit of a hint, because we are showing that we increased 10% the open rate, so customers are more likely to open if they can see in the heading of the email this is an interesting item for them. So the click-through rate improved massively by 30%, and where we were really shocked is in how much sales we can increase, but doing this simple change of just changing the header of the email and changing the hero item that we want to promote. Alistair?
All right, we've got a few different responses to the poll coming in, so let's take a quick look. 2.3 times the previous sales value as a result of using the personalized recommendation engine within AI Marketer. That's absolutely fantastic. And so what we'd like to be able to do now is to ask Henrik to just take a quick look at some of the things that we can actually do with it beyond the recommendation engine in terms of results.
Indeed. So I spoke a little bit about TradePoint earlier and about the churn model. So I wanted to dive into a specific case study here where basically TradePoint, if you're unfamiliar, they're a branch of the Kingfisher Group that caters to electricians, plumbers, gardeners, etc. And they wanted to understand when their customers were becoming deactivated, when they churn and it stopped coming, and try to predict that before it was sort of too late. And so again, we use this the AI Marketer churn model. We were able to identify 475,000 of nearly 1 million customers who are at high risk of churn. And by identifying those customers, we then created some experimental design campaigns to win these people back with 5 different incentive sets. And this was very, very successful. We ended up creating 4 million additional pounds in sales just within the first month. And then within 6 months, the uplift in sales was 13 million pounds. And the algorithm itself in this particular context had a 91% accuracy, meaning that whenever we predicted somebody to be churned, they really did not come back, unless we did something proactive to win them back. But there was a final stat that I also found really interesting in all of this, which I think is also very important, which is that 53% of the reactivated customers were still active 6 months later, meaning that if you actually went through the trouble of trying to nurture those customers back to health, so to speak, then slightly over half of them continued to be active, and you didn't have to try to constantly win them back, which I think is good news in terms of customer retention strategies.
Thanks, Henrik. Right. I know that Henrik finds it absolutely fascinating on that slide to talk about the amount of customers that were still active 6 months later as a result of it. But that number that really stands out to me is that £13 million of incremental revenue in the first 6 months. That is absolutely the one that highlights to me. And what I'd like to be able to do is to ask you to think about questions that you would like to put in the chat, because we're about to give you a few minutes to answer those. Thank you very much to people who've put questions in already. That you've seen how the AI marketer works. You've seen some of the examples of real life implementations. You've heard a bit about the science, especially some of the fascinating stuff about those Bayesian techniques in the churn model and how that recommendation system works. We talked about being able to work with our partners at the University of Essex and pull in absolutely cutting edge academic thinking and state of the art techniques to be able to make this work. The results speak for themselves. It hugely delivers for clients, and it is absolutely amazing to be able to integrate into platforms and workflows to be able to actually turn data into value. So we are open to some questions. I'm just going to select a few out of the chat, and I'm going to throw them over to Juan and Henrik to have a quick look at these. So the first question is, what kind of data do you actually need to have for these modules to be able to work?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think one of the risks in all of this is to think it's like, oh, I need like very specific data. Like, okay, what if I'm not TradePoint? So I don't know which of my customers are, electricians or plumbers or whatever. And actually, the beauty of the algorithm is that we've designed it in such a way that you don't actually need to know any of that. So the whole thing is purely based on these natural rates of return, the frequency of purchase, how much they've purchased, and so literally what you need to know is stuff like, okay, this transaction happened on this date by this customer, and this was the value. And as long as you have that kind of transaction history, we're able to run these algorithms. So not much at all, and you can still get some very, very good results.
And what does it take from an email platform to be able to integrate the AI marketer modules?
Great. Juan, you want to take this one, or?
Yeah, so basically we can provide sort of like a universal API, which is really simple just to turn on and off the switch on different modules, and they can be combined all together. It's super easy to implement, and the use cases are really, really like vast. Because, for example, if we want to build a recommender system, especially for VIP customers or for churn customers, we can do that. And the models are already built for doing that. So implementation is easy, and we have a wide range of use cases.
Just as an example, we have used, for example, the send time optimizer for using Adobe Campaign, so we can look at what is the best time to send an email so that there's an uplift in sales. People click through the email and end up buying some wine. But again, the nice thing about this is that you can connect it to almost any system that you may have.
Wonderful. We're preparing a handout which should be appearing on the side of your screen any second now in the handouts section, which is going to give you a bit of a summary of these modules and a reminder of some of what we talked about. I'm going to use the final 30 seconds or so to throw one quick fire question back at you, which is, what kind of companies are going to get the most benefit out of using these modules?
You're asking us?
Yes.
No, the audience.
Henrik.
Oh, really, I think, again, because we've designed these in this way that is so universal, I think the range of applications is so useful across the board. The one thing I would say, the one limiting constraint I would say, is that you need to have repeat customers for a lot of this to work. If you're an organization that only has customers who buy from you once and then never again, then maybe this isn't the right solution for you. But Otherwise, these machine learning models work really, really well at predicting these patterns of behavior and what's going to happen next. The purchases don't even need to be that frequent in nature. You can have very long customer life cycles, years even between purchases. But as long as you have enough repeat purchasers, we can make some very good educated guesses.
We've unfortunately hit our time limit. Thank you so much to our special guests for all of the insight you were able to give us, and thank you so much to the audience, the people who've been asking questions, everybody for taking the time to come and listen a little bit today. If there's more you'd like to know about the AI marketer, more case studies, etc., check your handouts, but feel free to reach out, and we'll very happily spend a bit of time talking to you about it. Thank you very much, everybody, and please do have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Bye.